All right, here we go. Just kicked it loose. We should be live and going. There we are. So, all right. Now let me get the tweet out. Let's get all the other stuff, and we are good to go. It is your old pal Emac coming with one Nolan Kelly here for Monday Night Football. We have I don't know. Do we want to say it's a good one? No, probably not. Because who knows? But last night we thought it was going to be a good one. It was not a good one. And now Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, Mahomes bum wheel, Watkins bum hammy. It was Andy Reid coaching gaffes just because that's the Andy Reid special. I mean, when you got Pat Mahomes and it's fourth down, run the ball, right? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Jeez Louise, that was just.
I saw that play. If you look at it too on Twitter, like they could have like just naked bootlegged him right out, gone for a little play action, and then had the tight end run across on a shell across there. I think it was Blake Bell. They would have converted that no problem. Like the Colts bit on that run there, and man, it's just not like them to do that. That's like the failings of this team. They just make really dumb mistakes sometimes. So D4 last time. I don't know if it's an Andy Reid thing or what, but man, that did suck. So
I don't know. But we've got a new one tonight. Wrapping up week 5 here. The 49ers are coming off of a early bye week. I don't know that I'd want my bye in week 4, but they are undefeated, 3-0, just 3 games. I have not seen a lot of offense from them. Their defense has actually been relatively effective. That is bearing out from the efficiency metrics, etc. And the one thing that I think of when I think of efficiency metrics, I think of fantasy draft. It's efficient, less rake. See what I did there to tie it all in, Nolan?
I love it.
Just a reminder, the only rake-free site out there, that would be one Fantasy Draft. I know you guys are like, well, how can they be rake-free? Well, they have a little subscription, so you basically pay, if you want to play $1,000 for the whole month, that costs you $6. Let me just double check that, because I think I'm on the that monthly.
Right.
And then if you want to deposit, they do charge you 3%. Okay, so let's do this. I put in $200. They charge me like $6.40 or something because I did it on a credit card, and they put the processing fee through to you. And then I've paid my $6 to have $1,000 in play. So that is what, 12? We'll just call that $12. I have saved, by comparison, for just my nominal play that I have of about $250, $300. I've saved $37.28. So, which is more, me having to have paid for this subscription and paid to put some money in there at $12, or the $37.28 that I did not spend on the other sites that don't charge you to deposit, but they hit you with 16% management fees as soon as you start playing there? I think the $12 is a better deal, Nolan.
It's true.
So throwing that out there, shout out to them, proud sponsor. They're running it back this week, $500,000. It's their contest stabilized there, 70,000 to first. 2 weeks ago, our own Adam Scherer took that down for 100K as the top prize pool that week. But here we are. That's what you got coming up here. Oh, the other trick is if you use the promo code OSMO, you get 1 week of $1,000. Now you got to use it quick, because it's only 1 week. Now, you don't have to use all 1,000. You just need to do whatever you need to do. But if you were to join tomorrow or later today, you could get into 2 weeks worth of contests over that 7 days, because they regenerate their contests. There you go. It's a little trick. And then last but not least, anytime you hit your ceiling, you can just upgrade to the next level. It's like your phone charges. You're like, oh no, I'm out of data. Oh, let me just go to that next plan. And it takes care of all of it for you. All right, Nolan, talk to me here. We've got some intriguing action. Tevin Coleman back. We've got Jeff Wilson, Jeff Johnson. Now, that's a name you can trust. Anybody get that movie reference, let me know. But if you've got Jeff Wilson, you have he is inactive this evening. Tevin Coleman is back. That's still a muddled mess there. On the other side, we know that Rashad Higgins is still out, but Antonio Callaway is back, and he, air quotes, may be on a pitch count tonight. That really does not impact, in my opinion, Damian Ratley too much, because the Rat Man only gets 2 or 3 targets a game anyway. So we're not expecting a lot from him. Everything goes through Landry. and Odell Beckham Jr. So you have some very concentrated offenses on that side because you throw in Nick Chubb, and there you are. And then on the 49ers side, Nolan, I think you and I were almost going to be activated tonight. We were just too far away to be there when the game started.
Yeah, it's really it's interesting, these 49ers wide receivers. One of the good things, though, I think in targeting them in your lineups tonight is just that this Browns secondary is still so decimated by injury, and we'll get into it a little bit more. But I've got some TJ Carey numbers that are pretty shockingly bad. So there's some really cheap 49ers wide receivers still getting snaps and still running routes. There's some more expensive 49ers wide receivers that are in pretty good positions. So I don't know what to do with this game. It's a really hard one because, 49ers probably have the least centralized offense in the entire NFL. Like, there's just, you never know where the ball's going to go. You have 3 running backs. You have like four wide receivers. George Kittle's really the only thing you can rely upon. And then on the flip side, you have probably one of the more centralized offenses in the league with Antonio Callaway coming back. That means probably same 3 wide receivers getting most of the snaps, with Ratley moving in sometimes. Not much of a tight end right now. Looks like we have 3 tight ends running in and out of this offense. So kind of an interesting slate tonight because there's so many different ways that you can go.
All right, M. Bosch got that movie reference. It was Eddie Murphy, Distinguished Gentleman.
Oh, the Distinguished Gentleman. That's an old-time 80s flick,
an older
right?
one. Yes, he runs for, I forget if it's governor or senator or something, and his middle name is Jeff, and he goes by Jeff Johnson because that's the guy who had passed away that he takes his spot. So he was counting on the people to put him into office by just name recognition. But in any event, back to tonight's. So I'm going to drop the link in chat. We have a promo out here on Osmo. It's our pinned tweet right now. All you got to do is follow the instructions on this tweet. But for those of you that don't like to read, I'm going to explain to you what you need to do. You need to like the tweet, retweet the tweet, and then reply to the tweet with the player that you think will score the most fantasy points in tonight's game. Now, obviously, there's only, 25 players or so that we're really going to be picking from. So if there are ties, there will be a random drawing, the winner of which will get a full season's pass of Osmo NFL content. It's a pretty good deal. So check that out. It is the pinned tweet, and I just dropped it into the YouTube chat. The other thing I'm going to put in there, because I'm going to reference some of these numbers, is I've got my article, which is the companion piece to this show. And within this, you'll be able to go look at either of the receiver sections. And I noticed one got kind of chopped there a little bit, so I'm going to fix that for next week. For the article coming out Thursday. There is no rest for the wicked. But that will talk about snap counts, and it will talk about routes run and some of the other stuff, just so you have a nice little baseline for which you can look at. But Nolan, shall we take it from the top here? We got 35 minutes, starting with the away team. That would be Cleveland. We've got quarterbacks there, which, yikes, a little bit of a mess because they're just not producing a lot. Let me get to my notes here. So depending on your side of choice, it looks like Baker Mayfield checked in this week as between the QB 18 and 23. I like to put that as a baseline out there just so we have a barometer. There are only 2 starting quarterbacks in these games. These guys, not that great, but it gives you a little bit of help. And there were only 2 teams on bye, so there were 30 quarterbacks out there, and some of the sites, of course, projected likely backups that we're going to get in, like with Haskins and with I'm blanking Taysom Hill there in New Orleans. So they're not quite QB1s here. So the hard thing is the 49ers have the second best defense per Football Outsiders DVOA. Now, what did they play? Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, and Pittsburgh. Now, DVOA is an efficiency metric, so it takes into account, tries to neutralize some of this stuff out, but they still have a pretty good defense. They also burn the clock, and we've seen Baker Mayfield not improve so far this season, Nolan. He's actually regressed, or so it would seem, or at least his offensive line, or lack thereof, has been a problem. He's been sacked about a dozen times through the first few games. And the last thought I want to give to you before I go for your thoughts here is, this is still just his 19th game he started. Before we beat the guy up too much, this is his 19th game.
Yeah, exactly. I still like Baker Mayfield long term. This might not be the spot for him to go ham. His 49ers defense is pretty good, but I mean, through 4 games, he's on pace, or he's averaging just under 300 yards passing. The touchdowns haven't been there yet, but I'm sure they'll regress. He's made some poor ball security decisions so far, and the offensive line hasn't been great. But like he's probably the safest play on this slate. If you're going to pop him into your utility spot, we give him about a 75% chance of being one of the top 6 players tonight on either your FanDuel or DraftKings lineups, which is the highest on slate.
So moving along to our next spot here, we've got running back, and that is it's literally all or nothing. It's Nick Chubb or it's nothing. He has, let me see, he is 4th overall in the league with 398 yards rushing through the first 4 games. His 5.1 yards per carry, again, I'm going to look at the efficiency here, is actually the best among any running back that has at least 75 carries. He also has 4 touchdowns. Now, the 49ers have been good against the run. Only Ronald Jones has gone for more than 45 yards. And then from a volume perspective, Chubb has had 88% of the carries thus far for the running back position. So I took out Mayfield's there because it's too hard to tell if it's designed or a scramble or something that didn't end up in a sack. So from that standpoint, there's really only Dontrell Hilliard is really the other guy that we don't even have to worry about him. He's the other guy that's going to be on the field for, I don't know, a quarter of the snaps and at least might be getting a couple nominal carries or a couple pass targets just to save with Chubb. So the big question is, who's our captain tonight? So I've got Chubb, and that just came out poorly, and Kittle. So yes, so I ended up splitting my lineups. Now my Kittle lineup, and this is what I call my main one. So I put these into the 3-mans, the 5-mans, the head-to-heads. So my Kittle lineup, I don't have either quarterback. Mm-hmm. The Chubb lineup, I ended up with both quarterbacks, but I had to drop down and use Kyle Juszczyk. Now, why I went with him is because David Wilson is out. Potentially, if there's a goal line carry, I find that hard to believe there is because they've just had so many already. It's hard to believe they're going to have another one. He may get it because it's not going to be Coleman and it's not going to be Breda, I wouldn't think, because they were so reliant on David Wilson Jr. there. So, pardon me, Jeff Wilson Jr. David Wilson played for the Giants, I think. That's not who I'm referring to. But so I ended up with 2 kind of weird builds. Now, the Chubb lineup does not have Kittle. The Kittle lineup does have Chubb. So there's 4 players overlap on that. But I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. Not ending up with much of the defenses. I thought I'd see a little bit more. That was a surprise. But before we get too far into this particular build, let's hit wide receivers. All of the production and opportunity goes to Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. They are on the field 93 and 96% of the time, respectively. They've both run just shy of 150 routes, and they're basically they've each led the team in receiving yards twice. And they both have at least one game of like 130 or 160. So we've seen upside, we've seen the volume, we've seen everything we want. The one thing we haven't seen is another receiver, really. But those are the guys I'd like to get to for the concentrated offense. Since we've hit on all the skill position players, because we're going to set tight end aside here for a second. What do you want to call out for anybody here on Cleveland that we haven't mentioned already?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you're going to see you're probably going to see you mentioned the concentrated ownership of this Cleveland attack, but it's really tough. They're tough matchups. The 49ers cornerbacks have been really good thus far. Richard Sherman and Ahkello Witherspoon. Witherspoon's not. I had some numbers pulled up, but they're both allowing a passer rating of under 60%. Quan Williams playing mainly in the slot, also allowing a 47% passer rating as well so far. You mentioned that they haven't really faced a lot of great players yet, so it'll be interesting. I think like when you're dealing with Landry and Beckham, they're pretty much matchup proof at this point, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. So I don't really have any problem going to those guys in your Baker Mayfield stacks. Makes a lot of sense to do those. I'm sure those won't be uncommon, though. You're probably going to see a lot of Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry stacks, because that's just such a huge percentage of this passing offense, especially with Callaway and Ratley splitting snaps and then 3 tight ends on the board for them. So if you want to get contrarian, you might want to pair Baker Mayfield with Chubb and another one of these wide receivers. It is a tough matchup, so just make sure you're crafting yourself a game narrative. I could see this game somehow just being a total slog fest, and the defense and kickers winning out too, right? So yeah, I don't know. I'm totally fine with Odell Beckham Jr. in your captain spot. We have him for about a 20% chance of being the top overall player on the slate in Awesomo's showdown rankings and single game plays for DraftKings and FanDuel. If you're a premium member, you can, if you haven't seen that yet, head over to the site and check it out. And we have Beckham Jr. predicted for about 16% captain ownership as well. So.
All right, here's the interesting one, and I've built about half my lineups utilizing Fantasy Cruncher here. And normally I set a rule where I say if you start the quarterback, I want 2 of his receivers. I didn't set that rule. I am now doing that so I can get some Baker Mayfield with his receivers here. But do I really want Pharaoh Brown to be a part of this? Not really. Do I want Antonio Callaway in there? Not really. Do I want Damian Ratley? Not really. So now I'm down to Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., and then Ricky Seals-Jones. By the way, Ricky Seals-Jones in his last game surpassed the tight end production for the season thus far for the team.
Probably on that one big play, right? I think he had like a 70-yard catch or something.
He had 3 catches for like 80 yards and a touchdown, something along those lines.
I'm on team Ricky Seals-Jones, man. I'm a Ricky Seals-Jones truther. I got him in a lot of best balls. I figured that Arizona would actually utilize the tight end. Not so much this year, and they cut him. So looking at the snap counts, though, from week 4 for the Browns, Demetrius Harris got about a third of the snaps as well. I don't really know what to do with them. They tend to use him as more of a blocking tight end, or at least they have thus far. Just 2 receptions so far, so I'm not going to get to him. Not super high on Brown. I think Ricky Seals-Jones definitely has the highest upside of these guys as well. So he's my favorite play in this range, and but he's also priced up a little bit more. He's 2,800 as opposed to Brown and Harris, who are like peanuts on DraftKings.
All right, so here's some of the other interesting things that I'm doing as we transition over to the 49ers. I don't really want a ton of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think our projection of 20 is reasonable. I'm just happen to be looking at DraftKings, but for quarterback scoring, it's about the same here on both sides. That you do get a 300-yard bonus, which Garoppolo flirted with 2 of the 3 games, 277 yards, 296. His problem has been not much like Mayfield, not a lot of touchdowns. Mayfield has 1 in each of the 4 games. And he has half a dozen interceptions. On the other side, you've got Garoppolo here, who's got 4 interceptions, but 5 touchdowns in those 3 games. He's only been sacked twice, so he's been okay. I just don't know who to pair him with. So my thought being on this is I'm okay getting him and not worried about his receivers. Now I'm going to go hard code in a couple where I have him and Kittle in the captain and vice versa. But those are only going to be about 5 or 6% of my total lineups here. So this one, much like 4 weeks ago, where I built that weird lineman up, talked about it on air, and said this is the first time I haven't used a main lineup without at least one of the quarterbacks in it. I'm doing that again, though I broke down a little bit because I couldn't decide. I just couldn't go without Nick Chubb there on half my key lineups. So, but it looked like that's the way I was going to go. So I'm not pushing it this week. The other thing I'm not getting a lot of is the defense, and I can't figure out why that's the case.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just looking at our defense projections right now. We're not seeing much ownership in either spot, but we do have a slight edge for the 49ers D, giving them about a 15% chance of being one of the top 6 scorers. So if you do want to differentiate today and you want to go with one of these defenses, you're going to get them at next to no ownership as always, especially in that captain spot as well. So, and we've seen it work out before, I believe. Was it week 1 where it wasn't Green Bay in the captain spot, but I think that was the optimal lineup. So
was it Philly that did it? I'm
Philly,
forgetting now.
or Philly, Atlanta, or Philly, Green Bay. Neither of those, the winning lineup, had the captain spot in the defense in the captain spot, but Jags Tennessee did. So this game total 47 points. That usually points towards not having the D in there. We usually have some usually you get some lower game totals. Makes more sense, but we've also seen the kickers just killing it this year as well. Kickers appearing in winning lineups all the time. They seem to be mispriced on DraftKings, and I kind of like him tonight as well.
Well, and as we saw last night, Pringle, really, just out of nowhere. He was my Mr. Irrelevant in my article.
Yeah,
and there we go. He was a crucial part of it, and he had more in that first drive than he had in his career. Thanks,
that's crazy.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, he's a good player. I like the way he looked last night. We'll see. Tyreek Hill might be back this week though. So
yeah, we'll see. Continuing through here, the 49ers. I don't know what to do with the receivers. Literally, I don't know what to do. It looks like former University of Washington stalwart Dante Pettis could be showing signs of life. You have Olympian long jumper Marquise Goodwin that is still lurking. Now, I wanted to point out with Goodwin, one of the things, he's super duper fast, and he went to the Olympics in the long jump, but he was also a sprinter and notable in the indoor track, 60-yard sprints and some of that other stuff. This is his, I forget now if it's his 6th or 7th year in the league. It's not like he's got more upside or he's going to show something different. He is who he is. And we already have a very spread out pass catching group. So I don't really know what to do with that. Although Cleveland is missing 2 of their, when we knew this was going to be happening, but they're missing 2 of their defensive backs in Ward and Greedy Williams there. But I don't really like any of the guys, because then you got Kendrick Bourne, you got just all sorts of guys here. So it all comes down to Kittle for me.
So I think there are two thoughts on this. The first is yes, Kittle's the best play by far. He's got 100% snap share. He's running routes all the time. Cleveland plays a zone defense that's easily exploitable, I think, usually by tight ends. Though defensively, they've been really good against tight ends. I think this season, I'm just trying to look. Yeah, they've been top 10. So that's not a great matchup, but it's the best play in terms of volume, in terms of snaps. One thing I do think, though, so I have 2 thoughts on this. On the one hand, you can pay up and grab your Deebo Samuels and Marquise Goodwins. They're a little bit more expensive, and I think that's a viable strategy tonight. Deebo Samuel has probably the best matchup of all. TJ Carey is lining up mainly on the right side as the right side corner for the Browns with Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams out. He's been beaten like a rented mule this year. He allowed 9 of 10 pass completions last week, 122 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's only allowed incompletions on 2 snaps this year, 21 of 23 coverage snaps. He's just been terrible, and he runs he's really slow. He runs the 4.5 40-yard dash. So for the most part, he's probably going to see the 49ers move their wide receivers around a bit, like most teams. He will probably see a lot more. Probably the most advantageous matchup here will be Deebo Samuel, but also Marquise Goodwin will get some time against him as well. So I think if you're looking for a contrarian spot to pay up, Deebo Samuel is not a bad option, and he's second on this team in targets. He's starting to emerge as possibly the go-to wide receiver in this 49ers offense. I'm not super high on him, but he's not exactly the fastest guy, so I don't really know how this matchup is going to work out, but I like that as contrarian play. And then when you go down here on San Francisco, one of the weird things about the pricing is that you have these snap counts for the 49ers are all over the place, and you're getting a lot of wide receivers getting snaps and running routes. Let Let me just pull up the numbers here. But Richie James Jr., Kendrick Bourne, and Dante Pettis all running routes. Richie James Jr. probably maybe the best bargain on the slate. He was on for 35% last week, 28 offensive snaps in week 3. Sorry, Kendrick Bourne 22% snaps. Actually led this team in receiving last year among wide receivers, and they're insanely cheap on DraftKings. Kendrick Bourne $300, Richie James Jr. $1,500. I don't know how many snaps these guys will get, and the upside is limited, but at the same time, the price point is great. And because this offense is so spread out, they're worth taking flyers on.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that one. I'm organically getting some of them, so that will be interesting to see. All right, I think my lineups are done there, so now I can start referencing some of my percentages against the popularity of the masses here. Just again, you can use both defenses. I wasn't getting them, so I locked them in for a couple lineups. So I'm going to use 6% of each of the Browns and 49ers in my regular spots, and then in my captain spots, I'm got 3 lineups each, and I'm running 170 lineups in this particular mix. So just for perspective there.
Nice.
All right, let me download my little file here so I can upload it. Do we have any questions coming in here in the old chatteroo? We've got, who do I start in my wide receiver 2? Is this a season-long question? Odell is in one spot, and then he needs to go with Landry or Debo. Now, you just talked about Debo, but you got to go with Jarvis Landry in this one, I think. He just has more upside from a volume perspective, as we've pointed out time and time again. We don't know where it's going for the Niners outside of George Kittle.
Yes, very true. And like we mention this every week, but you want to, when you're crafting these lineups and when you're building them, you want to create a narrative. I was actually talking with Alex Osmo Baker and one of our other sites co-founders, Tom JK321, and he was just talking about the process he goes through and about how important it is to craft that narrative so that if you think it's going to be a 13-10 game like last week, where Alex was actually on the Colts defense, shockingly enough. You can actually, it's to your advantage, right? So you got to think about these things. I think last week was a prime example in that Steelers game where Steelers defense, Jalen Samuels, James Conner, and then like a couple sprinkles in of I think it was Mason Rudolph, and then you had this like contrarian build where you had a safe play in Mason Rudolph, and then 2 running backs, which are contrarian, but will get more of the snaps if they're winning. Then you pair them with the defense, and all of a sudden you've built yourself a narrative. And so with this game, I don't know what that narrative is going to be with 47 points on the board. My inclination is that it's really just like really hard. It's really hard. This is a really hard game to predict. I don't think it's going to be a shootout, and I think it could be ugly, and I think the kickers could be involved. But that's the advantage of mass multi-entering, right? You can craft a few lineups. So if you're building on FC, just make sure you're going through and you're not, I don't know. There's negative correlation all over the place. You want to be both unique and craft some solid narrative teams.
Yeah, and one of the things I've done, or I found success on for that, is just build like 20 lineups at a time if you're using an optimizer, and say, okay, this 20 it's going to be with this in mind. This 20 it's going to be, with this in mind. Because if you're trying to build them all at once and just push the button one time, it's not going to work out for you. You're going to get caught unaware with some unexpected consequences, and that's just something I do want to point out. You do the show, of course, on a lot of the Thursdays there with Ben Raza, Jazzraz. He builds all his lineups by hand, so it's a little easier to control what you're doing from that standpoint. Alex, you'll have to ask him on the next show if he builds them in batches or if he just has it set up in a good enough way that everything kind of balances out. I suspect he probably goes through and does them in batches. And by that, I mean, again, low-scoring game, high-scoring game. San Francisco goes out to an early lead. Cleveland goes out to an early lead. Those would be the different types of efforts you would want to account for. Slugfest. Do we get kickers, both kickers involved, one kicker involved, etc. And then you got to remember, it's football. Weird stuff happens.
Yeah, exactly. You might even be better off if you're not entering a ton of teams and you're only entering a few teams to just like go contrarian over the full season and see how that treats you. Because like we've seen like with last week and with a number of these games, like weird things happen that we're not expecting, and defenses and kickers and all of these under-owned great value spot plays sometimes come up in these lineups. So I think if you're not mass multi-entering, you might want to just take the contrarian plays more often than not and hope to catch that winning lineup just once or twice this year.
All right, sorry, I got to ban a couple people there. Be nice. Come on. We don't need the spam. Doesn't help anybody. Looking back here. Oh, so what are your overall thoughts here on Tevin Coleman?
I think that just like you're pretty much just guessing, right? I think with the 49ers running back situation, you have Breda. It's going to be probably a three-headed monster with Mostert, Breda, and Coleman. Coleman coming back from a high ankle sprain, so I'm a little bit cautious with that. But these guys are just too expensive for me, I think, to get excited about. I'm not saying they won't be on the winning roster. It's just really difficult to predict who is going to be that running back. You could pair two of them up together with a kicker and a defense or something, and there's your narrative. The 49ers run the ball as well. The 49ers run the ball at the highest rate in the NFL. I think they're at around 70% or 68% or something this year. So maybe that's a contrarian move where you pair up Breda and Tevin Coleman and then hope that Mostert doesn't like snag all the red zone opportunities, or Mostert might even be the guy this week. It's really tough. You want to get super contrarian, plug all three in.
All right, let's see. Reminder here. It's the pin tweet over there on Osmo. Here's your chance to win a full season-long full access to Osmo Premium content here for NFL. All you got to do is 3 steps. Like that tweet, retweet it, and then reply to it. So don't reply with the retweet. 3 steps. With the player you think will score the most fantasy points in tonight's game. Of course, there's going to be about 24 options. You can see those options on my article. Those are the most likely to get points. Whomever gets correctly or guesses correctly will be put in a drawing with the others, and you will have a chance to get that free rest of season NFL package. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. You know, I don't understand why people spam a chat. I just don't. Anyway, here. All right. Let's see. If you got any questions, hit us up. Doing a little overlay check here and there. We didn't specifically hit FanDuel on that. I don't play over there quite as much. It was a different build there this week. You can definitely get both quarterbacks in as well as Kittle. Then you start to get the question marks. For me, I think if you went Kittle and Chubb, and then in only one of the quarterbacks, perhaps it would be Garoppolo and then a kicker, and then you're going to have to punt with one of the spots. That might be a more primary build. I'm doing. I like to at least build out lineups there so I can see what I'm going to be doing. So where's my lineup over there? Last night, literally the last 2 of these events, I've been the person on the cash line in the 50-50s. So frustrating. Like I was 51 and 50 were paid out. That was last night, and then the Thursday, that was Sunday night. Last Thursday's game, same thing happened. Wow. So angry. But I'm going with I ended up with Chubb, Kittle, Beckham, Mayfield, and then I had to go cheap, so I went with Dante Pettis. Now, I don't really have a lot of correlation there. I'm counting on everything going through Kittle and Garoppolo not doing anything else. I've got Mayfield there. I'm hoping if he does whatever he does, it's all going to be to Odell. But this is not going to be an uncommon one. So I put this in one tournament, and I put it in one 50-50 just so I could, ways. Yeah, just so I could build the stuff out. But I hate to give out a full lineup because then people get a little salty with that. And it's like, guys, we're not, unless something like Pringle happens, you're not going to be super duper unique in this stuff. As Nolan said, you need to look at Deebo Samuels. And you're spending way more than he's worth on DraftKings. Or you need to say, you know what, it is going to be Raheem Mostert, or it is going to be Kyle Juszczyk, or it is, and you just, you need the who's that fullback for James Devlin? The James Devlin 2 carries, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns primetime game, just to muck with you. Otherwise, the ones that feel comfortable, that's what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. So I have 2 tidbits for everyone. based off the Osmo rankings. If you're not a member, come sign up, and you can have access to all of these. On FanDuel, it looks like our most under-owned player is, and the captain spot is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. We have him projected as a 28% chance of being the top scorer. I think he gets 6 points for a touchdown pass on that. Oh no, it's the 1.5. So I'm not sure why that is, but I trust the Osmo rankings. They're usually pretty sharp. So we have him graded as a 28% chance of being the highest scoring player on the slate and only getting 18% ownership. On DraftKings, it's the opposite. We have Baker Mayfield projected for a 15% captain ownership, and we give him about a 9% chance of being the top player on the slate. So those are two little tidbits for you. You might want to go under-owned on Baker Mayfield in the captain spot and pop him in the utility, because we do give him the highest chance of being the 2 to 6th ranked player on that slate. So there's a little advantage for you.
All right, and then in all the excitement, I forgot to mention that the popularity projections for tonight's single game slate are free on Osmo, so you can kind of check that out. Again, it's a different. The single game slates make it a little bit tougher. The one thing we've done a pretty good job on is the overall percentages. It just gets a little tricky trying to predict who the captains or MVPs are going to be. And that's kind of twofold here, and Ben Rossa has explained this a couple different times here on some of his discussions. You can fade a popular player but still have him on your lineup. So what he means by that is, if you think Kittle's going to be number one and everybody's going to be on him, or last night it was Mahomes, if you think everybody's going to be on Mahomes and he was on like 94% of rosters, you can still play him, just don't put him in the captain spot. If he doesn't do quite as well, you've now eliminated those other guys. If your captain does better, your MVP does better. So that's something I think was a different way of thinking about things than I had envisioned. But even our captain stuff is usually directionally correct with where the masses are going to be going here. And sometimes you'll see a surprise, and we've seen it already. There's just some unique things that happen out there. So.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to drop this link in here because you can also get it for, I think it's free as well, for the primetime slate, which is not just this one, but it's the Thursday or the Monday to Thursday contest. So I'm in those. No slates off for me. There we go. Let's see. What do we got? 5 minutes left. I swear I thought this game started at 8:20, and then I look again tonight and it's 8:15. Do they change these? Because we even talked about this on air last night when it was Eric and myself.
I think it's different for the day of the week. So I think some of them are at 20 past the hour and some of them are 15 past the hour. It's confusing, I know. Why not just keep it at one time so we can?
Because it's literally just 5 minutes. Does the 5 minutes make that much of a difference? I don't think it does.
No, I'm right there. I'm right there with you.
Except when you're racing against the clock for lock. So four left. So Thursdays are supposed to be 8:20. Sundays are supposed to be 8:20, but it locked at 8:15 last night. Or let me rephrase that. DK locked it at 8:15. I don't know why. But the Sunday kickoff is supposed to be 8:20, and then Mondays are supposed to be 8:15. So just putting that out there, because I remember last night I was looking at what they said on their download page, and what they said on the clock counting down were 5 minutes off. So just be careful. There's nothing worse than being shut out and not getting your lineups in or your file in or whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see here. If you were going to pick between Coleman and Breda, myself, I believe I would go with Breda. If they were both fully healthy, like at the beginning of the season, I would have said Coleman. But I don't know how to trust him since he's missed literally everything but the first 12 snaps of the season. So
I think you can just let price be the decider there as well. You probably can't trust Coleman, but he's on FanDuel. He's about $3,000 cheaper than Breda. On DraftKings, he's $1,200 cheaper. So that would be what I would use as a tiebreaker for those two. The 49ers will want to use Devin Coleman as their featured back, probably mixing in Breda. I'd assume that they envision like a kind of a 60-40 split to start the season or something. So I don't know if they get there they get there at this point with him just coming back from his first game back. But I think he's the riskier player, but he's also the better value.
Let's see. If you were going for the MVP, this is for Christian Fernandez, Breda or Juszczyk? I'm playing Juszczyk on my quote main lineup, but that's because I had $1,000 on DK, and he seemed like a
I don't think, but you're not going to get the volume from Juszczyk to pay off that captain spot. So I would not use him there. Like on FanDuel, anyways, where you're not penalized for the extra money. I'm assuming that's what you mean. Anything can happen on these other DraftKings slates, but generally the higher volume players and the key integral parts of the offense are your best bet for your captain spot.
All right. Landry or Breda on FanDuel? That's a better question. For that one, I would still go Breda. I'm counting on the touchdown upside and the full point PPR. It's half point PPR. That was not going to get Jarvis Landry there, in my opinion.
What's that?
Breda or Landry on FanDuel?
I don't know. We only got a minute left. So Landry is Landry's 12,000 and Breda's 10,800. Yeah, I mean, I think probably Landry, but maybe just by a hair. I don't think there's very much separating them. Just looking at our projections, we have them right side by side in terms of both their chance of being the top player and their chance of being in 2 through 5 on FanDuel. So take your pick, man. Roll the dice. There's no way to tell on that one.
All right, and then Sativa or Indica? I'm assuming that's a little wacky tobacco there. Yeah. Shall we say the Devil's Lettuce? That was a nickname I just heard in the last year, and I thought was really good. Nice. If you guys want to do that, go for it. Let's just say last time I had fun with that stuff, Jake Hari was not walking this earth. So it's been a while. But in any event, there we go. TMI, of course. But that's going to do it. We're at lock here. By the time you guys see this, we will be. We've got a full week of shows here. You'll get at 11 o'clock every day. You're going to get the DFS NFL strategy show. That is a Monday through Saturday. We've had Josh and Jake jumped in and did a couple of the baseball shows. They were only going to do it if there was any more 4-gamers. I don't believe there are. Today was probably going to be the last one. And then, of course, we have Live Before Lock with Fast Eddie Fear behind the paywall for slates larger than 5 for the NBA preseason. You do get a free article in front of the paywall from Adam, but of course, that will be posted usually earlier in the day. We won't have all of the news. That's why you want to join up here at Osmo, and you can get access to Eddie behind the paywall for his videos. And people, multiple years, have just been doing phenomenal by following what he does. In the preseason, he fully immerses himself in there. And that's just a slog going through all of that information because, guys aren't playing in every game. They're trying different combinations, different things, etc. So definitely something that you can take a look at and try out. And it's well worth it here at Osmo.com. And then there's hockey, Nolan. I'm in. Yeah. I'm all in. I'm going to play every day until basketball starts.
I like it.
Then I'm going to try to still play. It gets a little trickier, but the best part that we have a voracious group of not only contributors, but our people in the Slack chat covering all of the news. So we get the nice little all-channel blast when someone is scratched or there's a line change, and that has been very, very helpful. Yourself, Jake, Vots, and then a variety of our members have been keeping an eye on everything for us. So when you're crazy doing a bunch of different things, you can go in and save your lineups if you need to. Anything you want to hit on before we get on out of here?
Let's go. Let's enjoy this game. My 49ers going to be one of 2 undefeated teams in the NFL after this. So,
all right. Chat would like me to get lit up. They would like to burn one with me. A little puff pass. I think my time is over there, folks. But with that, we are going to get on out of here. You can follow Nolan at Nolan_Kelly. I am at EMAC DFS, and of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.